Lights, camera, action. You're used to that, right?
Cool. Yeah, action. There we go.
All right.
Or as Clint Eastwood says, okay, let's go.
That's it. You guys, this week on the podcast, we've got none other than the one and only Jeremiah Bitsui. Did I say that right? Bitsui, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
He plays Victor in the very popular series Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He's also a dad, and he does a lot of other stuff. We're going to hear all about it. So, Jeremiah, thanks for coming on and giving us some of your time. I'm excited to kind of hear more about your story, your life, and how you got to where you are now. So, give us a little bit of the background. How did you end up on Breaking? Actually, first, hold on. Everyone's going to kill me if I don't do this.
Okay.
What do you call it when you spill meth into your cake mix?
What do you call it?
Baking Bad.
Oh my God.
I had to throw a dad joke in there, man, and a meth joke. I cracked them both at the same time.
I like that.
That's
all right.
funny.
Let's steal that.
Yeah, you should. You should tell that. You have a vlog too. We'll get into all that stuff, the Breaking Dad vlog. But anyway, so how did you get to become on Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and all that?
So I got into Breaking Bad. So like the long of it, how I started in acting was I come from like a lineage of rodeo family. Like my dad was a bareback rider, my mom was a barrel racer, and they were just like crazy about rodeo. They go all over the country. And my dad, before marrying my mom, was like this crazy cowboy, and he had like a gang of brothers and cousins, and they'd all get on the road and hit rodeos. And it was crazy stuff. Like the stories they have are actually pretty amazing. And I've played with the idea of writing a screenplay, but they'd hit rodeos and end up in saloons and fighting with other cowboys and breaking bones, and then still riding more broncs and
right,
and
just
bulls.
like old school Wild West sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I was born into all that. So but unfortunately, I was kind of like a runt. So the joke I always tell is that my parents, when I came out, I was like allergic to hay, horses, and so I was kind of like the runt of the family because I couldn't participate in all of those fun activities. So long story short is I ended up a show ended up coming to our town, and we were living in Arizona at the time, and they came to Chinle, Arizona, and they were looking for actually looking for horses, and people said that my family has great horses. They came to basically audition horses, and the lead was supposed to be a female, a young girl, 5-year-old girl. I came dressed as a ninja because all I do is watch TV. I watch TV and movies, and we had a rent-a-flick in our town, and my favorite films at that time were ninja movies. So I came suited up as a ninja, ready.
Love that.
Knowing these guys were from Japan, knowing where ninjas were from. And my mom was like, no, she was totally embarrassed.
Wait, how old were you?
Well,
how old were you?
We'll have another meeting, but next time maybe you can show your face and so next time they came, they kind of took it like a formal interview, and they said, hey, we can't find a female lead for this role. So, we're willing to change the role to a male and love to offer you this role. So that was kind of it. And then, not very many opportunities after that until we moved into New Mexico. I got a role on a movie called Natural Born Killers. That was like my first, big, that got me into SAG. And then, hit a few other things. And then a movie, I was a big fan of, various directors, and Michael Cimino, who directed Deer Hunter. At a young age, like I got into very like deep and dark films, and Michael Cimino was right up there for Deer Hunter. And so I knew who he was, and I had a chance to audition for a film he was directing as a lead, also with Woody Harrelson as a lead. So I'd be working with him again. And on the day, he just told me, he's like, hey kid, you got the role. He's like, I don't think I've seen a lot of people. I don't know who else I could pick. He's like, so I'm picking you. And I was like, okay, cool. And, so I was already, super happy, already kind of cashing my checks, and, and, and then, weeks went by, and this is just the hard side of film and TV. They ended up going with another actor, John Seda, who's also a great actor. But the studio was pushing him, and the money executives and the producers were pushing him, and they got their way. And so they pushed past the director. And so I was heartbroken. So the reason why I tell that part is because I vowed I would never even get into acting again. I actually wanted to get into directing.
You vowed that you didn't want to get into acting again after that experience?
Yeah. So I turned 15 years old, and I was like, I didn't want to get in. And, some of the...
That's young, dude.
The reason... Yeah.
You're like making these life decisions on 15. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask when you were dressed up like a ninja. How old were you then doing that?
Oh, I was 5 years old.
Shut up. That's so funny. I was 5. I love it.
Yeah. And, you have kids. As parents, we have, and I'm surprised. My daughter, she's 2.5, and I'm just amazed by what she knows.
Yeah. And like the personality she's taking on.
It's amazing seeing that development.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you're 15. So, you vowed you'd never do acting again. You wanted to get into directing.
I wanted to go back to being a ninja. Actually. Yeah. At age 15, I was like, I'm going back to being a ninja. I didn't want to be involved in it any longer, so I kind of stepped away from it. Unfortunately, things were things were getting rough where I grew up. I think that same year I lost like 6 of 7 best friends that I grew up with. One of my friends from middle school got like shot in the face. There's just like a lot of crazy stuff started happening, and I just didn't see the hope anymore. And you had all these guys that I around the neighborhood I lived in, and it was like the quick fix. Like there was money to be made quickly, and it was hard to turn it down. And so I kind of started going down that path, and just kind of lost hope from that perspective. And, ended up getting shot when I was like right before my 18th birthday. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off, and I was like, I got to do something, that doesn't include either going to jail or getting shot. So cleaned my act and went to graduated high school, and then moved to LA. And decided I wanted to try to get into film directing,
Got it.
So
that brings
so all that happened before 18.
Yeah, that's a lot, dude. Like you got shot. You're playing around. You're doing like, which is just funny. The irony, because you're like, I don't want to get shot. I don't want to get in trouble. All this violence, and then here you are playing this character doing exactly that.
Oh man. Yeah. Like I pull from a lot of that experience, as a young guy, and knowing some of those, like I could play 1,000 different bad guys just cause I have a Rolodex of guys that I knew, So
I'm going to pretend to be that guy that I ran into once.
Yeah. There's this one guy.
So you moved to LA to pursue that. Did you end up doing anything in that world, or did you how old are you now?
So yeah, good question. So I was 19 at the time, so, and I won't age myself. So this has been many years ago.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm 39 years old. So yeah, 20 years ago, I moved to LA, and, got into programs, wanted to go to UCLA, and then, ended up into a few film and television independent programs. And that oddly, there was like one year there was I got into a really good program, and they had an acting part of the directing program, if that makes sense. So all the directors, they wanted to get us out of our shell and give us a shot at acting, and also working with each other, as directors. And so, that was the closest thing that I did to acting between my last experience, which was auditioning for that role and losing that role. And so it was bittersweet. It was kind of like, all right, I'll do this, but
your heart wasn't in it. Yeah, you're like, whatever.
Felt like home, to be honest.
Really?
You know? And yeah. And actually I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then a few of the directors were like, hey, do you mind, like, you know, we're all shooting stuff. Do you mind? I have this role, or I have a little thing that I'm shooting. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, I'm going to also be a director just like you, but I don't mind. And then, not too much later, I moved out of LA and was thinking it was permanent just because I ran out of money, and my first business that was supporting me kind of fell on its face. So I got a call maybe towards the end of the summer, and I had been, you know, went through like a breakup with my first girlfriend, like all this crazy stuff happened, like, you know, lost the dog that I've had for like 10 years. It was like heavy stuff. And so I was just camping out on my grandparents' ranch, and ended up getting back to my phone. They didn't have any cell connection there. Got back to my phone and found all these calls, and I was just like, all right, I'll get back to them later. My phone was pretty much on the brink of being disconnected, and I kept getting a call from a 323 number, LA area code. And it was one of the directors from that program. And they're like, hey, I'm working on Lords of Dogtown as the director to Catherine Hardwicke. Would you like to, you know, to come out and audition? And I was like, I'm out here in New Mexico. I was like, and they said, well, you know, we'll fly you out. Like, we can't. And I'm like, what's the role? And they're like, well, it's this gangster role. And I'm like, you're in LA. You can't find
find some gangsters.
You can't find some gangsters. And so he's like, well, it's a very specific type of thing that she's looking for. And I just thought of you, and, you know, either way, we'd be willing to bill you and give you a credit or something. And I was like, okay. So I decided to do it, and I thought it was a fluke. And then a few weeks later, again, I got another call from a well-established director, and he's just like, hey, you remember telling me that story about how you got shot and your mom found your gun on you? She discovered your gun. I was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, I wanted to see if it's cool if I use it. We're doing this movie. And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. I was like, don't even worry about it. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, well, if you need any credit or compensation, he's like, I said, don't even worry. So he's like, well, the other thing is I wanted to offer you this role. He said, because, and hopefully, you know, you're interested in taking it. But he's like, I think you could play it well. And so that was a movie called, oh God, 1,000 Roads. And we took it to Sundance. Not too many years later, our DP ended up winning an Academy Award for The Life of Pi. So that really is what kind of got me into the driver's seat of acting again.
That's cool.
And it was just kind of happenstance. Long story short, of course.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So they took your actual life experience, they turned it into a scene in something, or was it, I guess?
Yeah, they turned it into like a whole, they took a lot of stuff that I grew up with put it into this character, and I got to play the character.
Got it. And then that turned into, I mean, did you do a bunch of stuff between that and then and Breaking Bad?
Oh, okay. So then I was like, you know what? I got in that. I just kind of got the bug again, and I started auditioning. And then, I got into this TV miniseries called Into the West, and it had a good little role there, but nothing too big. And then I got onto this other project called Wildfire, a TV show. And I was playing like this 13-year-old kid, which is kind of funny because I realized that adults play teens because, young adults, because they can still look young, but you're not having to pay a kid like
it doesn't know what
at my
doing.
age. I was 13, and back when I first started, and the rate was crazy, and the hours you're limited on hours. Mm-hmm. So that's why adults end up playing those roles. But yeah, it just kind of kept going. And then I got a role on, a movie called Flags of Our Fathers, Clint Eastwood. I actually read for the lead, got pretty far along, and then Clint offered, he created a role. And so that was that was like my journey up until that point. I think I did another movie with Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Natalie Portman. I was playing a cop, and that was with a director I really respected, Jim Sheridan. So all of that was kind of just leading up to me getting the opportunity. Yeah.
Now, and good for you. I mean, it's really cool. You've gotten to do some really cool stuff. And so leading up to that, so you get this audition for this position in Breaking Bad. Did you know what it was at the time? Or was it just like, hey, we got a role, we need a bad guy. Come see what this is about? Or did anybody have any idea that it was going to turn out to be as big as it was?
No, I mean, actually, so the first time I got the call, and I forgot about the call, just because it wasn't really like the way that my agent brought it up. She was like, yeah, it's this weird. Yeah. She made it sound like it was a cable series. Like if it was like some kids that were on public access creating a show about Albuquerque and meth and all this. And that's the way that she brought it up. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. So of course I didn't really pay attention. I forgot about it. And then she called me on the day and said, hey, just checking in. I haven't heard from you. Are you good for your audition today? And I was like, yeah. What is it for? And she's like, it's that show Breaking Bad. And she's like, it's at the studios. And I started another business in the meantime, just to kind of, when things were slow, and I got into the club business, and I got into a nightclub promotion. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird, and it allowed me to like work at night, promote, make some good money, and then, have the day open. So I had a meeting at one of the clubs, and then ended up locking myself. So I had to print, when I found out that I had this audition for Breaking Bad, I had to print the sides there at the nightclub. Because I got locked out of my loft, which wasn't too far. And then I got locked out of my car, of course. So the VIP host at the club had to give me a ride to the audition. And he was just like, and I didn't even look at it until I was on my way. And he's like, where are we going? I'm like, oh, it's actually at the studios. And then I started thinking, oh, shoot,
that's
like
kind of
this
a big
must
deal.
actually, this is a legit thing. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you. I've always wanted to see the studios. So we got down there, and I was reading for Los Pollos Hermanos manager, which ended up being a female role, played by a very talented actress. And so when I went in, didn't pay attention to anyone, beelined right into the audition, made it just in time, managed to be off book somehow. And the director, sometimes when you do this stuff, it's really nerve wracking, but they'll just look at you like I'll just act like this is my iPad. Like he was like looking at me like this, and he was like, oh. And then he just like went back to whatever he was doing on his iPad or whatever. Yeah. And then he didn't even look up at me the whole time. And then he just like looked up once at the end, and then he just goes, oh, okay, great. Hey, thanks. And I was just like, oh, man, what an asshole. I ended up, I'm friends with him now. So,
it's funny,
but, left like it's nothing. And then just thought, okay, another one, whatever. And then, the casting director came out and pulled me in and said, hey, he wants to see you for something else. And I was just like, he didn't even see what I was doing, but, so I went back in and paid attention, and it was like all these nefarious dudes, like different colors, shades, and everything, like, big white guys, black guys, like it was like a football team walking in. And I was just like, how am I not real? It's like bouncers from the nightclub, it seemed like. And those were all the guys that were reading for what was nondescript customer at the time. And so I just did a cold read, and then that next day they called me and they said I got the role. So and then when I shot with Brian, the scene, he was really cool. Everybody was really cool. And I just kind of thought, okay, that's great. That was my little bit. I day played on the show. And at that point, I got to know what it was about. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty much it. And then they brought me in season 3, and said, "Hey, it was actually Aaron Paul came to my trailer and said, "Hey, congratulations, they're making you into a reoccurring character, and this is you're playing Victor." So
that's cool.
That was kind of
and
cool.
like that's such an interesting character because Victor doesn't talk. He doesn't say anything. Like hardly like one line every once in a while. So like you're really just there. You're like the muscles. You're always just like, if you fuck around, I'm gonna shoot you. Like, and it's so funny. So so you didn't have to audition for that part, I guess, right? Because they already knew. They were like, this is the guy for this.
So that was Victor. The character was Victor. So the first scene I did, which was in season 2, that was a nondescript customer who we didn't know who that person was, later becoming Victor. So what happened was, I guess they decided to flesh out the Giancarlo storyline more. And initially I think they were thinking about going in a completely different direction. And then it just became, But like my first lines that I read were for Mandela. And so it was like 38 pounds, $1.2 million, truck stop 10 miles south of exit 25. And then, and that was really it. Yeah. Just delivering information. And I really got a lot from that. Just like that, this guy's just no bullshit. And it's all, I'm sorry if,
no,
I don't know if I'm allowed. You're good.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm good. So I just kind of, that's kind of who Victor is, and I just knew people kind of like that.
It's like this mysterious dude. I love Victor. I think he's badass. He's kind of like just this, he's like hiding in the shadows, black Escalade. He just gets out and moves around and is like there when he needs to be. And you're like, if Victor's around, something bad's about to go down, or you know what I mean? Like it's always this mysterious, like, oh shit, it's about to get serious. But then it doesn't. Fun. And then times it does.
I was just going to say, I'd never suspect it would go this long, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. So now I got to ask about Better Call Saul. Because Better Call Saul was probably not even a thought before Breaking Bad, right? So Breaking Bad kind of comes to an end. Is that how was it season 8? Is that right for Breaking Bad? Was it 8 seasons?
We went into, it was like technically like 5.5.
Okay.
It was, or 6. Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Some people call it 5.5. Some people call it 6.
Right. So then they come up with the idea of Better Call Saul afterwards. And they're like, oh, let's make a prequel to Breaking Bad. And let's introduce Saul Goodman and like his backstory. And that's like going on forever now. And you've been a big part of that.
Yeah. So it's nuts. Like, I mean, they introduced it as kind of just like his Saul's corny tagline, for in Breaking Bad. And then it spun off and became a whole different thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. Like cool. the whole, like, if you're going to hire a criminal lawyer, you hire a criminal lawyer.
Lawyer. Yeah.
It's so funny. And he's such, his character's awesome. It's so good.
Oh yeah. No, everybody's so cool. They're great to work with. And, yeah, man, I just can't believe it's like we're still chipping away at it. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Well, you had a baby a couple years ago. We said that already. Yeah. 2.5. You said 2.5 now?
2.5, yeah.
You've been a huge supporter of the company, of the brand, and of our products. So I personally and the company, we all appreciate that. And it's really cool to have somebody like you kind of endorsing the product and kind of on board with us as a brand and what our message and brand and DNA stands for, with, supporting dads and getting dads more involved and things like that. And I'm kind of curious, talking about parenting, you came from this crazy childhood with like these wild west cowboy parents, like how has that shaped you as a person and or dictated the way that you're being a dad now? You know what I mean? Are you like, I don't want my kids in that environment type of thing? You're like, no, that was awesome. And like, that's the life you guys are living, is just crazy mayhem, or is it, I'm kind of curious to know some of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I think it's really, what I realized was like, I just, I don't think the challenges were deep enough in terms of like when I was growing up, and I was always trying to set my own challenges and set some of these little goals for myself, and always starting, something like I was, eventually I would go to the rodeos when I became, like I was on medication and stuff for certain allergies, and I started to like shine shoes. And so I've always had kind of that entrepreneurial side.
Mm-hmm.
And so now like with my baby girl, it's just, I'm realizing like she's super smart and we're always having to just challenge her. So I'm thinking of, I start my day with her, just her and I. And I try to think of different activities we can do or things that I can show her. And then it's not always discouragement. It's sometimes of course you have to enforce, and that's important, to be able to give those boundaries. But sometimes I realize, like, as a parent, you at that age when they're that young, it's sometimes just they may get stuck on like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do this. And I think we all do, to a certain extent. Like the door opens this way and I'm supposed to go through this door. And it's like, no, baby, it's dangerous on the other side of the door. And for us, logically, we think of it like, we're in a different place. And so I've tried to get better at being able to say, no, baby, let's not do that. Let's go over here. Let's go play. Forget that. We can, there's dangerous stuff behind that door. Let's go over here. Let's come with me. Let's build a hut or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so just realizing that really kind of helps. Whereas before, I think maybe I would have been a little more impatient, not understanding.
It's tough. Patience is a big deal, right? When you become a parent, you don't it'll test your patience on many levels, right? Where you have to and if you're not patient enough with certain things, you don't give the opportunity for your child to learn something because you end up just doing it for them. I think I'm struggling with like a good example right now, but even just like tying their shoes, you can get to the point where you're like, I'm just going to tie their shoes so we can get out the door. And then suddenly you learn like your child has never learned to tie their shoes because you always did it for them. You weren't patient enough leaving the house for them to learn how to and mess it up a bunch of times. And no, you got to over and under this way, or this is a weird example, but you get the point.
It's a good example.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, you got to slow down. You have to change your mindset and just be like, well, we'll get out the door. If we're 15 minutes late to the birthday party, we're 15 minutes late, but she'll learn to tie her shoes, but there's different levels of that. But patience is such a huge part of parenting that you don't realize you have to be that prepared for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's there's a connectivity element to it. They're making major connections and the other thing is not like for her, at least I feel like I can explain things deeper and she picks up so much.
Well, they're like sponges at that age. I mean, like those first 5-6 years of their life, they're just sponges soaking up everything. They're mimicking everything you do. When they start talking, they're going to be saying the things that you're saying. There's a lot of things that they just, and which is why it's so important for parents to be such good role models because you're leading by example and they're watching that and they're going to mimic that. So, it's so important to be a good role model, especially in those, forever. But like those first few years, you're like, wow, they're not really watching. Oh no, they're watching and they're listening. So try to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And, it's cool though. I think like if I would have, in my own development as an adult, like I think if I would have had a kid at a younger age, and who knows, this is all just in theory. Yeah. But I could see how that could be hard, because there's a funny story. I grew up with some kids who actually had kids back in like middle school, and I ran into them at the LAX airport as I was coming back to New Mexico to film Better Call Saul. And I was like, happy, excited, all, how you are when you're a brand new dad. And I was telling these friends like, I got, my first baby coming, and their daughter was already like an adult. So already like literally 21 and
that's
living
crazy.
On her own and all that. And so they're laughing at me like, oh my God. And so, I think they had a few drinks at that point. And so they were like getting a kick because here I am, in my late 30s and I'm finally getting into fatherhood. And so, I was kind of like just being a good sport about it. and then later end up finding out on social media that they ended up pregnant maybe like a month or two later.
No way.
So I got a kick out of it, and I know that we know each other well, and we can kind of can kind of laugh at ourselves.
That's
but
funny.
I couldn't imagine being a young parent. It has to be hard.
Well, and so much has changed. Yeah, so much has changed. Even from like when they had kids, who are in their 20s now. And you said that those people had kids when they were in middle school.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, they had a kid in middle school. Yeah.
That's wild. But
I mean, we had our high schools, like, I don't have it on me. I don't know. It's in storage, but I could show you my high school year. I went to like 5 different high schools, but the high school I ended up graduating at, we had in the back of our yearbook, there was like a kids section. Like we had a nursery, 3 or 4 pages.
That's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. That's wild. You've had some experiences.
That's how it is growing up in the hood, man.
Yeah, I guess so. But so that kind of goes back, to more what I wanted to talk about with, with raising your child, like all the trials and tribulations and things that you've been through, the hard times, the getting shot, the, all these things. Like, has that really, that you have a lot of experiences, but I imagine that's really shaping the way that you're trying to raise your child and to steer her in the right direction and make sure that she's got plenty of like good opportunities and trying to do the right thing instead of kind of going down some of those paths. But it sounds like the area you grew up in was like, that was kind of the path people went, and you were able to work yourself out of that.
Yeah. I think, for now, we really, my wife, like some of her upbringing is completely different. And so the things that she's seen, like she lived in Chicago, and through high school, she went to a really nice private high school. And so she knows the value of that. So sometimes I tell her these stories and she's like, that's crazy. She's like, I've never even seen a fist fight in high school. I was like, I've been in 80 fist fights in high school, And so she was just like, that's nuts. And I tell her some of these stories and she's just like, that's crazy. I got my first gun when I was 14 on the street. So it's like a complete different paradigm, but we both see like we're, she's a stay-at-home mom and, has a nonprofit on the side, just more out of her passion. Mm-hmm. But that's really the big thing is we want to stay in the vein of being looped into our passions but putting a high priority on the family and raising our daughter and kids,
What I know you told me before we started recording, but your wife's nonprofit is what now?
It's called the Dream Lab Coffee. And so, knock on wood, thank God she decided not to start her coffee shop pre-pandemic. And so she was testing the waters, using it as kind of a way to create dialogue within the community about, let's say if it was inspirational. So if it was me or friends or people in our network sharing what they did within their own, their work or their journey, their path and their professional career, mm-hmm. and just giving public access to, okay, what is that like? Because we have some really interesting friends. And I sat on a panel of one, and a friend was he was a venture cap guy, and even people in small business didn't know what venture cap was necessarily. So there was a lot of people that were like, oh, wow, light bulb. That's amazing. And then, it ranged. I think also on the panel I had one of my agents on the panel as well. So it ranged from that initially. And the thing was to be able to kind of create roundtable discussions around coffee, because we're really passionate about coffee. And that was going to segue into the coffee shop pre-pandemic. And now that's all kind of changed in a sense that now she's really focused on just good works, and still discussions matter, and still having those kind of virtual coffees, mm-hmm. but more so making impact and doing things in the community.
Good
of
for her.
goodwill.
That's super cool. Good for her.
Yeah.
You talk about guns. Some of our early conversations were about guns. Lots of our like going back, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago. I don't even remember how you and I first started talking exactly. I don't remember if I reached out to you or you me. I really don't remember. Do you recall?
I don't recall. I think maybe I tagged tactical baby gear, and because I was given my first piece of tactical baby gear, it was the day bag. My wife got me the day bag, and she knew, good looking out, she knew that I'd rather rock like something that looked like a range bag,
right,
than something that looked like like a pink
curly diaper bag. Yeah, for sure.
Nothing against that, some fathers, that's how you roll, but she knew that that's what I'd like,
to have,
and I thought it was the coolest thing, with the fold out and everything else. And it was, and I always got a lot of inquiries about the bag. And then I think so. I may have tagged you.
I think that's what it was.
One of the first ones.
Yeah. You must have tagged me in something, and I started following you, and then we started having a lot of like messages back and forth. And then actually was the first picture you posted, was that from Los Polos in the chicken?
One of the pictures, I think it was, I posted on set because it ended up becoming just my day bag,
right.
And I'd always keep diapers and, everything handy in there, but it ended up just being my regular work bag,
right?
Like, my laptop and everything else.
Right. Yeah, it was cool to see it in the restaurant. But at any rate, so going back to the gun things, because we've had so many conversations about guns and this pistol and that pistol and all that stuff. So what are some of your favorite guns? And I have some other questions too around guns now that I'm talking about it.
Okay.
So I recall some of our early conversations being about some of the handguns. Was it HK VP9 that you were looking at?
Initially, that's a good memory. Initially, I was thinking of getting a HK VP9 because a friend had shot his and I really loved it.
It's so.
And then I ended up getting. Gun. I was like in that market, and ended up getting the CZ, which was the P10C, which was new at the time, and so that's kind of my like tricked out range gun. I've thrown some really cool things on it from Killer Innovations. It's pretty much like a Killer Innovations DEF CON gun now,
Nice.
Yeah.
What about more of the rifle style stuff? You're an AR guy?
Yeah, I built my first, actually, so the funny, everything I have is like stories, so stop me at any point.
Mm-hmm.
On Yellowstone, we ended up doing, and there was like, at first there wasn't like a real set itinerary or agenda. When I was on Yellowstone, it was kind of like, hey, we have a gun range, you're gonna have some shooting scenes. If you'd like, a production vehicle can take you down there, we can arrange a driver. And so I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So every day before I shot, I'd go out and shoot, and it was unlimited. Like literally I could take any gun I wanted out, and it was unlimited ammo. And I was like looking around, like if it was, like if I was doing something wrong, like I could take any gun out. So I was like a kid at a candy store for like 2-3 days. And then I saw these, one of the armors from the show, and I figured he was from the show, and, he had some crew stuff and everything else. And he was taking pictures, and I figured out he must. So I figured I'll go introduce myself. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, thank God you reached out. He's like, let's go outside. Let's go talk. And so I went outside, and he had his friend that was helping him, who's LAPD SWAT. And they were like, oh, thank God. Like we were just like coming to decide what kind of gun. And we were reaching out to production, hoping we could have a conversation with you. Do you have some time? Can we shoot a few guns and see what you feel more comfortable with? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we shot a few like fully auto blank guns, movie guns. And so they had like an AK-47, like, the kind of like the ghetto blaster AK, no stock, nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And
pistol,
and then we went over to the fully auto AR, and then we just kind of landed on an AR.
Right.
And so so reason I tell that is that armor actually helped me build my first AR.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
We became
That's
really
special.
good friends.
Yeah, that's really cool. Once you shoot stuff that's fully automatic, it kind of ruins you. Like everything you shoot after that sort of sucks. You know, I remember the first time my brother and I, we went and rented an MP5 one time, and we were just like, fun switch, full auto, let it rip. And it was like, that was awesome. Like everything after that sucks, you know? It'll ruin you quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I play a lot of characters that shoot guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on CSI, and I kind of in one of the scenes, like I was shooting a Mac, I think a Mac 11, and in the scene I'm fighting with this other character, and my gun goes, you know, and right in the scene, in this jostle, like my hearing protection fell out, and it kind of like still to this day, like I still kind of have like a little ring in my ears from that.
And those that shooting blanks.
It was like bouncing off the wall. What was that?
Shooting blanks out of those guns, I imagine, on set.
Yeah. They were full loads, so it was pretty loud. Like we were in an enclosed space. Yeah.
I imagine full loads in a full auto gun because it's still got a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they'll do half, and sometimes they can make it work. But yeah, I think they have more jamming issues when they do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, what other training have you done? I've seen video or pictures of you at Terran Tactical. Is that right?
Yeah, I've trained with Terran. I've been down there a few times. I got into 3-gun, and so I really love doing that. And so I just try to pick up wherever I can. I train a lot with the LAPD guy from Yellowstone. He ended up becoming a friend as well. Mm-hmm. And so he teaches me more like urban combat tactical, you know, and he has some crazy stories as well. But, you know, and then I picked a lot of just tricks up about reloads and everything else from Terran. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a lot of fun. I try to get out a few times a week. I have a Daniel Defense PDW, which is a ton of fun, but it's really expensive right now, you know? And so I changed my AR, the custom one, into a 22. And, you know, that way I can kind of get a little more range time.
Yeah, just go plinking around.
Yeah.
22s are fun, man. People like knock it like, oh, that's a cute little 22. You're like, you know how fun this thing is? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's so easy. If you ever want to convert your 5.56 AR, all you do is just get that
bolt carrier group and a magazine.
Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. And it's, yeah. So hopefully I can take it out this week.
Yeah. I may or may not shoot mine 22 converted with a suppressor on it at the house from time to time.
Oh, man.
My kids have done some shooting that way. The vlog, the Breaking Dad vlog.
Breaking Dad, yeah.
What prompted you to do that?
I don't know. I think, you know, I get a lot of messages on social media and just, you know, random questions. And I started with the idea is like, maybe I should do a YouTube channel and just do some Ask Me Anythings, or, you know, I've done a few Ask Me Anythings in the past just on Reddit. And I kind of thought so I was playing with the format. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, you know what, it'd be fun to go and just shoot something, maybe take it on the road and once a month shoot something for like a week and just kind of do a day in the life of, you know, experience. And so the first one was actually we were going from SHOT Show to LA for the Breaking Bad experience, and then up to Sundance for the film festival. So that was we got a few episodes out of that. Mm-hmm. And then we had some other cool things planned pre-COVID, and then we kind of got punched in the face by COVID.
You know, I've done a lot of vlog stuff for myself, and like I go through this mixed bag of emotions around making my own videos. And initially and it goes back and forth. So some of my early thoughts were like, man, I want to document some of the stuff. We're traveling the world. We're going to Hong Kong. We're going to Vietnam. We're going to China. We're doing all these different things. And like, it'd be really cool to document that and share some of those experiences, but also share some of my knowledge that, you know, around business and e-commerce and social media and marketing, all this stuff. Like, share that information with people who are watching, and hopefully they can learn something from my experiences, and it helps them, you know, be a better person, whether that's like they learned how to do something on their website and now they can make more money, and like that was because of me, or whatever. Like those types of things, that would be really, you know, really cool. Yeah. So I did a bunch of that for a while, for probably a year of just like documentary style vlog stuff. Where it wasn't always me filming, people following me around, and I just trying to share informations or tidbits from meetings or stuff like that. Kind of like Gary Vee style stuff, right? And then that became sort of impractical to a point where like bandwidth just wasn't there, and like trying to edit these videos and get them out. And like, we're trying to run a very rapidly growing company, and like trying to really focus on that and not get distracted too much by other things and whatnot. So I kind of like laid off it for a while. And then I was like, no, like I really want to share some information. I want to build an audience outside of this company for various reasons. I'm not trying to make money off of it. I'm not trying to monetize it. I just want to grow an audience somewhere else. That way, if we go out of business one day, or if we decide to sell the business one day or whatever, like I still have a voice somewhere outside of the company, you know? So it's like, let me get back on, you know, try to build this YouTube channel and try to build that up. And then that kind of went kind of south again, where I just didn't have time. And, you know, YouTube's a whole nother beast. Like, you can't just throw a video up on YouTube and be like, oh yeah, everyone's going to see it. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It's like a full-time job, and it's difficult. You don't always get to decide like, oh, this video's got a great thumbnail and a great title, like it's going to crush it. Like, no, it's not. Like, you're going to get 30 views and be like, why am I doing this? And then you get, but you know, it's like those happen, right? Like you've experienced it, I'm sure. Where it's like you get those 30 views, but then you get the one text or email or comment on that video. It's like, this helped me so much. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. You know, I can't tell you how much this has helped, blah, blah. And you're like, all right, right. That's why I'm doing this. It's not for the 30 views. It's to help these people, you know? Yeah. And right now, more than ever, I've got more motivation and more drive to want to do that stuff. I just don't have the time. Yeah. I'm so busy with things going on, and we keep hiring more people here to help do things. But like, it's almost making me busier in a way, in other ways that are good. But it's just like not allowing me to make those videos that I want to make that like soothe my soul, because I know I'm doing something good for other people. That's not like just trying to make money, you know? So yeah, no, I hear you. And it's really just kind of what I think is making a discipline out of it, even though I haven't kept it up. But it's tough because, you know, I mean, there's just other pieces of life. And then sometimes you find yourself like awkwardly trying to shoot something, and then you're like, God, like, you know, this is messed up, man. You know, I don't have time, or then you just forget. There's times where I've turned the camera on and thought, oh, this is gonna be this, and then I got wrapped up in a call or conference call, and then it's just you're like, whatever, screw this. Forgot all about it. Yeah, well, that, or you're just not in the right mindset. I mean, I'm sure for you as an actor, like you have to really be in the right mindset. Like when I shoot a video, I have to put myself in a certain mindset to be able to like be creative or know what I'm going to say on this topic or whatever. Like everything changes when the camera comes out or when the record button gets hit. Like you're like, you either kind of like freeze up. You're like, what was I going to say? Like, no, that sounds dumb. And then you start questioning yourself and you're like, this is going to be stupid. Why am I doing it? Or you're just, something comes up, you get that phone call or that text message, and then it takes you completely out of that mindset you were in. You're like, I got to put out this fire. And then you're like, screw this camera. I'll do this another day. And then you just don't do it. It's tough. You don't. Man. Yeah. And I think you hit it on the dot. It's really the thought of, I guess, kind of being too much in your head. Selfishly, honestly, I started this because I was just so uncomfortable, and it sounds weird, but being in front of the camera, and not having the comfort of my lines, you know? Mm-hmm. So like, I know, like as an actor, you kind of have to know, like, okay, this is everything. Like you're in this space, like
you have to know what you're communicating. And so you have in your head, or at least in your mind, about where this character is going, and you have the words, and you have and then you just kind of blurt everything out, so it's like, I always say it's like when you're on a film set as an actor, it's like no one's really looking at you except maybe the director and a producer, but everyone else is looking at you objectively. So you have makeup person's trying to keep the makeup off your collar, and then the wardrobe person, that collar keeps flipping over. So they're all looking at these little things. Like the DP is like, oh God, how do we change that light? Keeps his head. So naturally, when we're in front of a big group of people, you end up thinking like, oh, everyone's looking at me. Like everyone thinks I'm probably horrible. And some actors don't want to be looked at. Like big actors, they do not want anyone looking at them except for the director. And, for me, I realize that there's a practicality. Like no one's really looking at my performance. Like the sound guy, he's just concerned when I reach that peak and I keep blowing out the sound. He just wants me to be at a consistent level. So it's really technical. But what I wanted to do selfishly, getting back to it, is be able to at least talk and communicate like we are now, and not having to be so caught up in like, what am I thinking? What are we doing? Like what in my head,
Yeah, that's tough though. That's kind of a two-way street. And it's interesting that you say that about being on set, because it's like filming a video for yourself, YouTube video or whatever, is such a different animal. One, because a lot of times it's just you and the camera. Like you can go hide away in your room, and when there's no one else in the room, it's way easier to talk to the camera than if there's other people around, or even, in the house or whatever. You're like, I sound like an idiot. Like, you have those weird like internal battles with yourself. You're like, I don't want these people hearing me record and messing them up and saying it again and all these things that I've been through 1,000 times. Now I just don't really care. But it still messes with me a little bit. But like to me in my head, and this is, I think will be interesting to hear, is like a lot of those types of things of like what needs to be said, who's moving where, what the action is, like that's almost predetermined by someone else, and you don't have to think through that or what the story is or all these things. Like I'm supposed to go from here to here and look angry at this guy and get in the car and leave. Like, to me, that seems so much simpler than trying to come up with what you're going to say and what the story and what the hook is going to be, and edit it, and do it. Like it's like predetermined by someone else for you. That to me seems so much easier.
Yeah. No, it is. It really is. And I mean, it's not like you could just switch it up and be like, actually, we're going to go into that field over there. It's like, oh no, you're not. We have this whole army of people lighting you and dressing you and making sure that you're.
How many people are on a set typically?
It depends. So it depends on a few things. If we are doing like a big special effects thing, our makeup department increases, our wardrobe department increases, and then depending on the special effects, sometimes the stunt guy will be there. So it's really the stunts, special effects. Anytime we're doing like the box cutter thing, I mean, that was like everything inflated. We had a huge, the crew goes up because they're bringing in what you call day players, which are additional resources for hair, makeup, wardrobe. So the crew list jumps. But I would say, it ranges somewhere between maybe 90 to 150 people somewhere.
Dang. And you play you do all your own stunts, right? You're your own stunt man.
Oh yeah. Do all my own stunts. I always tell there's a guy named El Godo, and he's a great stunt guy, and we always end up working together. And one year, the year of Box Cutter, I died like 3 times, and he was my stunt guy in each death. And he's like, bro, you got to stop dying. I'm not gonna have any work. And I'm like, all right, just keep dying, and then you have a ton of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I was getting typecasted as the dead guy for a while. So.
Well, yeah, you're like the drug dealing shooting dead guy. Like, jeez, it's so funny.
But it's fun.
What have you had more fun doing?
Fun,
have you had more fun doing Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? Or do you have a favorite between the two, and like which show you like more? And do you watch them? Do you go back and like watch them with everyone else?
I try to watch as many as I can. And I think Breaking Bad was kind of unprecedented. You know, anything that if you've already been through it, you know, there's something about, you know, there's a familiarity, and you kind of like, in this sense, everyone is new, you know. Now it's like everyone actually is old. Like we all have been together. We're all 10 years older. And so we're all old to each other. So it's kind of, you know, we get grumpy with each other sometimes. So we're like a family now at this point. So that's kind of nice, which is irregular, you know, in film and television. It's kind of like we're in this weird gypsy, you know, like we're in the circus. And so you end up running across some people that you work with every once in a while. But at the same time, it's really small. So you have pockets like in New York, you know, you have different crew, of course, there, and LA, same. And then if you do a project that's more international, or then it's kind of a hodgepodge of people from different areas. So, but it's really, it's small and inclusive in a sense that you could start talking to someone, and then you find out that person is dating, you know, they were dating the one of the camera guys, or just there's all these mixed just relationships.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
You know,
typical like small
I'd say
community
Breaking
stuff.
Bad just because it was new.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
From that
a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, brand new and exciting and unprecedented. I guess at that time we really weren't at that peak of where we are now.
Right.
In terms of television.
That's wild. What do we have forward to look to? What do we have to look forward to? Is what I was trying to say. Is there any more Breaking Bad stuff coming?
Breaking Bad, I don't think so. I mean, I think they kind of closed the lid on Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul, but who knows? You never know with Vince. It's like, you know, you never know with him.
Well, it just takes a good idea of like, oh, I know how we can revive this, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I know how we can keep this story going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what it comes down to, right? It's the storyline. Like, how can we keep the story going?
Yeah. Which is funny because it's like, it's 10 years later, but we're playing, what would it be? 6 years prior to Breaking Bad. So it's kind of becoming physically, it's getting harder, you know, as we go on. We all have to try to be as young as we possibly can, and defy nature from that sense.
Yeah. Has it been tough for a lot of the characters to like remain looking the same throughout all of this too?
I think more, you know, I think everyone's pretty healthy. But on the side of, I think, hair and makeup, you know, that's really up to hair and makeup.
Right.
Like they're the geniuses that drop, you know, years off of us. And in some cases, you know, drop pounds just in case we're not consistently hitting the weight, you know, not like there's a requirement, or if it's just like, you know, who knows, like there's some characters that maybe come from playing a character that's supposed to be 20 pounds heavier. And now they're back on Better Call Saul, where they were 20 pounds lighter, and they're like a fighter, like they're having to get back to their fighting weight, you know, and make, you know, to make the character consistency.
Yeah.
So,
but we still got some left of Better Call Saul to come though, right? Because he like in the most recent season, he's finally become Saul Goodman recently in this most recent season. So I'm like, I was so not caught up with Better Call Saul, and I was like, I binged watched all of it. I think right around all the COVID stuff, I was like, well, I'm home now for a while. Like, let's get caught up. I watched The Tiger King. I got caught up on all the Better Call Saul, like all of it.
Have you seen Queen of the South?
No.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Is it?
I'm not in it at all, but you know.
Oh, then I don't want to watch it.
Good work. It's good.
Good. I'll check it out. Good. Cool. Yeah. Awesome,
Yeah.
dude. Well, listen, I won't take up much more of your time. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share with my audience? Anything you want to tell them to go check out? Go check out.
No, I mean, could I ask you some questions?
Absolutely. I'm an open book. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think, okay. So first question, what's back there? What is in that Pelican case?
In the Pelican case right now, it's probably empty because it's probably hanging on the wall in my office.
Oh,
I can go grab some guns though. You want to see something? It was probably the Ruger precision rifle. Trav, why don't you go get that? Actually, go grab like anything you can grab. He'll grab something cool to look at.
Do you want to see my new Archeon?
Sure.
Yeah, let me grab it. Let's see. But this is my EDC.
Ooh, that's cool. EDC. Put that in your pocket. If you're just listening to the podcast, it's like a giant axe. Oh, that's rad. Nice Damascus blade on that.
Yeah, little Damascus blade. And then for some reason, I have two different mags. I have like 300 blackout mag, and I have an AR.
Yeah, those hex mags are
on my
cool.
desk here. So let me see. Oh no!
All right, so this is the Ruger precision rifle that goes in that big Pelican case. Put this bipod down. This is a 308.
Wow.
This is like their performance long range chassis. It's got a big Tregicon. What is this? I don't remember. 4-16 scope. And I have not shot this thing nearly enough, but it's super rad.
That is bad.
Yeah.
And that's Ruger?
Yeah, this is the Ruger precision rifle. And at the time, like this is one of those like out of the box guns that's like a sub MOA at like 1,000 yards or something. Like it's a highly accurate rifle right out of the box. Throw a scope on it, dial it in, and you're ready to go. That's like not a lot of upgrades to do to this for the average person. I'm sure if you're a precision shooter, you'd upgrade some things, but for somebody like me, like I can't shoot as good as this gun can shoot. So it's great for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you take it to the range? You have some 1,000 yard plus targets?
We've got a range here that goes 800 yards. So pretty close,
Okay.
pretty close.
Cool.
Have you shot that far before? 800?
Yeah.
It's
I have.
tough. That's not easy.
Yeah. I think it was like with the Creedmoor round.
Yeah, the 6.5 Creedmoor. They make this in the 6.5 Creedmoor, and I opted not to do it because 6.5 Creedmoor is like for 1,000 yards plus or 1,200 yards plus, and I didn't have anywhere to shoot it that far. It's more expensive to shoot. The ammo's hard to get. I was like, just give me the 308, you know?
Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad gun, man.
Yeah, it's super rad.
That's a bad gun.
This is a Frankenstein gun that I built. It's got like some Wilson Combat stuff on it. It's got a Voltor billet upper. It's a PSA Afghanistan lower receiver. Cerakoted by my buddy Dave at Coastal Cerakotes. He's got our logo on it. I don't know how well you can see that or not. The logo's back here.
That's bad.
But this is 300 blackout. Got a suppressor for it and stuff, and it's really rad. I love this gun. Another good one is the HK MP5, or this is the SP5. SP5K technically. That's the semi-automatic version and not fully automatic. So this is getting ready.
We were out shooting that gun. A surgeon friend of mine, he actually put the what is it called, the trigger, the
that binary trigger.
Binary trigger,
yeah, where it shoots when you pull the trigger and it shoots when you release the trigger. So it's like pop, 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 pop. Yeah, super rad.
Yeah,
they're really cool.
it was so cool, man. We had a good time shooting that one.
Definitely. That's all he brought me to play with.
Yeah.
What else you got? What other questions do you have?
So another question I have, I guess just as an entrepreneur, this is just something that I'm asking everyone is, in terms of COVID, just being prepared and not, there's nothing really that could prepare you for this time, this period, Yep. But, if you were going to look back, for your business and plan a little differently, what would that have been? What would that look like?
I don't know that you can plan for it. I don't, we did sort of plan for it. We saw this hit China months before it hit America, before it hit America in a big way, right?
Yeah.
So when we saw some of those reports, because we deal with Asia manufacturing, so our stuff is made in Vietnam, and we source some of the materials come from China, but our main like operations out of Asia are in Hong Kong. And so we've had our eye on Hong Kong with all these like riots in China trying to take over Hong Kong and all this kind of stuff. We've been watching some of the news closely on that, and just, we got people there that we're looking after. And, so we kind of saw this first wave of the coronavirus hit China, and we were like, oh man, like supply is going to be kind of interesting because we get some of our materials, buckles and stuff like that, come out of China. So, but the good news was when some of that was hitting, it was also during Chinese New Year's, which is when all the factories are shut down anyways. And we had already planned for Chinese New Year, and like, well, the factory's already gonna be shut down. We're not gonna get anything during this time anyway. So we were already like pretty well stocked up on inventory, knowing that we needed to get through Chinese New Year. It's just kind of how we operate. Like, know that that's gonna be a thing. So we just plan accordingly. So we were only affected by some stuff by 2 weeks, and that was stuff that like we need, as soon as it fires back up, we need to get this out. And so we were only like 2 weeks of a delay on something we needed to come out of China, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. Like 2 weeks, all right, cool. So we dodged that bullet. Like, that's no big deal. And then when it really started to hit the US and they started doing all the travel bans and all this stuff, and, we're going to start doing quarantine at home and stay home for 2 weeks. And that was March, I think. And it was like, oh shit, like this is the beginning of the end. Like, that's it. We're screwed, like the whole world's going to shut down. And like, thank God we're in a good way financially. And like, we've got good inventory, and, we'll just see what happens, And, my business partner, Alex, is like unbelievably smart, and he's like a super nerd with numbers. So he did some stuff financially for us to just make sure that we were going to be good, and that we weren't, that we were just had, plenty of cash to get us through if we needed to. So that was really good. He kind of saw this coming. So he was like, very on the front end of like making sure that some of the things that we could do, even through the PPP loans, or, payroll stuff and all those kinds of loans that were available to businesses. Like, we were on the very front end of that. And, then sales really kind of tanked for like a week, in that initial week of everyone like not going to work, and everyone sort of just stopped doing anything except for buying toilet paper. Everyone was buying toilet paper. And then it started to pick back up. We were like, oh, sweet. All right, cool. And then it kept going and kept going. And we were setting like record numbers, like all through the Corona stuff. And I was like, this is crazy. Well, it turns out like a lot of online sales, like no one could go to the stores anymore, and there were still people working. Not everyone was out of work, and people could, work from home perfectly fine. So the people were still spending money, and a lot of people still had, income to burn, or were still having babies. That wasn't going to stop. And people, now they're not having a baby shower and they can't go to it. So they're just mailing them a gift instead of a baby shower. So people keep having babies, and we keep selling diaper bags, and sales were up. And then it turned out we ended up burning through all of our inventory. We like started selling out of stuff, and we couldn't get it fast enough. It was just, so I couldn't have done anything else to prepare differently for it, to answer your question. Aside from like forecasting that sales were going to be way up and we were going to sell more, and I would have ordered more stuff, but I would never have known that.
Which is the impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you'd have a cash flow issue.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to always be an issue with a business when you're having to buy inventory like that. But at any rate, that I don't know that we could have planned. I don't know that I would have done anything different.
Yeah.
I don't have any regrets, or like, we should have done this, or we're super fortunate for sure.
I hear you. No, that's good. That's great. It's wonderful. It's cool to see certain businesses doing really well. And I think people are having more of an appreciation for, I don't know, I guess, local business, small business, being able to buy from, really unique items. I know I have more time, so I'm able to look and see, rather than just buying something from a site that I normally go to, it's, now I can kind of
research it a little bit more, find something a little cooler.
Yeah,
definitely.
And yeah, but on the business side, like for us, it was the same thing. We got through the PPP program, and then it kind of shifted. Like, I have a general contracting construction company, and
what don't you do? You do it all.
What's
saying? What don't you do?
Oh man, and thank God. I was just gonna say thank God, because the acting stuff is impossible right now. So with the exception of residuals, which is kind of nice, and everyone's watching TV, so keep watching TV. But with the exception of that, it's like, the construction stuff is still deemed essential work. So it's been nice to be able to still have that as a function. But honestly, it's hard not to start climbing the walls a little bit. And, I used to travel a ton with the family. And so, now we haven't been on a plane, of course, for, 4 or 5 months. So kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's super crazy. The only thing that I think, now that going back to your question, running through my head of things I would have changed, and it's not so much on the business side, but on the home front with the kids, and like they ended up being homeschooled, for a while. It was all this online virtual learning stuff, and you're in Zoom calls with your teachers and other kids in the class. And, I don't think most parents in America were ready for that. Like, it takes a very dedicated and certain, I think, type of person to be a teacher. And I think it's gotten a lot of appreciation for teachers, for sure. And, my wife she was like, I am not a teacher. I am not good at this. I don't want to be good at this, but like, you have to adapt and overcome and figure it out, like you can't just keep your kid and stop the learning. Like, and now it's just continuing, and we don't even know now if what the kids are doing with school in the upcoming school year that's supposed to start in the next like 30 days, so it's like, what does that look like? So it's like
crazy.
So that's been wild. And, you haven't had to deal with that, I guess, because your daughter's so young, and I don't know. And it's going to change. I think it's going to change the way, schools operate probably forever. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more online learning for younger kids now, a lot like colleges went to like online college, route. I think that we're going to start seeing more of that even in the elementary school ages. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just a wild time. And then, and then everything else with all the political stuff and, all that's just crazy, but
it is.
I can't even.
All of it, like the timing of everything. It's
and it's like, you got the virus happening, and then you've got it's an election year. So you've got the political stuff going on, and then the racial movement going on. Defund the police. I think they need to fund teachers. Like, everything's just crazy. Like, just flip it all upside down.
Yeah, it is. It's, but I think imagine being, well, I guess you can, because you have kids in school, but imagine learning American history like now, now that there's like a microscope on it, now that there's a microscope on, the Constitution and rights and like, due process, and, you're going to have some amazingly smart kids, considering, all of this that's going on. They'll actually live through some of this and be able to be like, wow, that's crazy. I experienced that, firsthand. I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Hopefully
those are
martial
things,
law, but like they're seeing things where they're like, okay, that's what this is, and there's a context to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I was trying to put some of that in perspective for my kids, even with the coronavirus. I'm like, hey, listen, like we're going to have to stay home. We can't go out. We're not going to restaurants. We're going to be at home for the next 2 weeks. Of course, we thought it was just going to be 2 weeks in the beginning. And I was like, look, like this is a pandemic. Like, this is stuff that you're going to be telling your grandkids about. So like, this is a very big deal. And I need you guys just to cooperate, work with mom and dad, like just do what we say to do, or everything, 2 weeks will go by. But like, I want you guys to like soak it up and understand what's going on. It's a big deal. Of course, it hasn't ended, and everyone's over it. And they're like, screw that pandemic. But
you're like the flight attendants. Like you're like the flight attendants, and you have your passengers, and you're like, just be calm. Like we're gonna circle around the city one more time. Don't worry. Enjoy your beverage. What would you like?
Would you like some? Get you another one. Jeez.
Yeah, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Your NSX.
Yeah. Let's talk about cars. Let's talk about cars.
Okay, so let me put some context.
Okay.
Like with seeing your NSX is like, and I like cars as well, but the NSX, that was like the first sports car I remember that I was really into as a kid. I remember, when the NSX was out, that was like that was it.
The Holy Grail. Like that was the poster car. Yeah. Like it was in your bedroom. Like I'm going to have that car. Like that was me. Same thing, man. There's a handful of those things for a lot of us, right? You got like the Dodge Vipers and you got the Lamborghini that everyone looked at. That's like the stuff you got at the Scholastic Book Fair. That was like the poster you got, at school. But yeah, same, man. The NSX. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's great. What's the other dream car?
I don't know, to be honest with you. That to me is like my holy grail car. Like there's other cars I'd love to have, but like that one just like was a bucket list car that I wish I would have bought years ago. So for some context, and I don't know how much you know about me personally outside of the business. I know you follow stuff, but like, I used to build custom cars. So I come from an automotive background, and I used to do a lot of like import tuner, builds and turbo stuff and things like that. So like I was always into like the Japanese stuff, and I built an NSX for a customer years ago that I was like, I'm recreating this car for myself when I can afford it. And it was like unbelievable. I was like, I have to do this. And then the NSX, the value of the NSX wasn't as crazy just after that. And I was like, I could get a used one for like, 20 grand. And I was like, man, I wish, I was like poor at the time. I was like, I can't afford to spend 20 grand on just a car to play with. And I can barely even put gas in my truck right now, So like, that's where I was on life at the time. So I was like, when I can get one, like, thankfully they're affordable now. Well, then the new NSX came out and the old ones just skyrocketed in value. I was like, now these things are like 100 grand, 120 grand, 70 grand, 200 grand. I'm like, I'm never going to own one. I was like pissed. And then an opportunity came up where I found a smoking deal on one that like needed a little bit of work. And I was like, perfect. That's the one. Like, I don't care that it's, got these things, like I can fix that stuff. Like that's what I do. And so it was just like perfect timing to be able to afford one that wasn't 200 grand or 150 grand and be able to like do the work, which I wanted to do anyways. I've got a whole car shop out here where I can still mess with stuff and work on cars. And, it's kind of like gets me out of my head where I just like, I need to turn off everything else and just do something and escape from reality. Like I'll come in on a Saturday and work on the car or something. So anyways, when you come down, we're going to go shoot some guns. We're going to go play around in the NSX and we'll probably drink some beer and eat a lot of food.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, the new Broncos came out. And
you excited about that?
We've been looking at those. Those are they look really cool.
Yeah.
A guy that was in. I used to share an office garage, and he had the old Bronco, and then he had an older Defender.
I used to.
And he had a few other vehicles.
Yeah.
But like he had those parked, and I would just always. I became a big fan at that time.
Yeah, so. Yeah, the Defenders are cool. I used to build a lot of Defenders, a lot of high-end ones for like a lot of big names. So that's awesome. That was my business for a while.
That's cool.
Yeah,
they're really cool. But yeah, definitely down. My in-laws live in the South, so
cool.
They moved down there, so we'll have to be out there for sure sometime soon.
Definitely, cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much once again for coming on and hanging out and talking to us about all the stuff. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to getting together some more. And I really appreciate you sending me all the like meth and all the other stuff in the mail.
Send it all the meth. Yeah.
It's rock candy. It's rock candy. That was
15 to 25 right there. Thanks. That's it. That's it for me, man.
Yeah. Hey, remember that guy we used to talk to, Jeremiah? Oh yeah, he got locked up.
Oh yeah, he got locked up after I put him out for all the meth that he sends through the mail. Yeah, actually, it's the funny last thing is before we leave. It's actually candy. If you haven't eaten it yet.
Yeah, it's rock candy.
And we used to eat it on set. And so Aaron Paul and I would be sitting there talking and just eating the stuff. And then, when you're an actor, you set all the bad habits on set. So then we had other crew coming by and taking scoops like, oh man, this is great. And putting it like, in their gear or whatever and just munching on it. And then we'd keep knocking the scale off because they wanted it to, so they would like have a real life, it would have to make a real life weight.
Yeah.
So they'd have to keep telling us, guys,
hey, quit eating it.
Stop eating all the meth. You're messing up our scale here.
That's so funny. So is that what you guys used in the show then? Was it rock candy as a prop?
Yeah. Yeah. The same stuff I send you is what we used.
Got it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate that. You continue to send us stuff and the letters and the patches and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll send you some so you can sell them on your site.
There you
as
go.
Well.
Yeah. The patches for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Can people listening, can they go buy that anywhere from you currently or no?
Yeah. They're on breakingdadtv.com. It's on our site. Actually, Hold on. Let me just, I don't want to give you the wrong, I guess you could pop it up and post, right? But Breaking Dad. Okay. So it's breakingdad.tv.
Got it.
Is the website.
Cool.
Yeah, not Breaking Dad. To get that right. So yeah, that's our website, and you can purchase it. Yeah, and tactical baby gear. Soon to come.
Yeah.
We'll get that set up
for sure. I'll be happy to sell those. Awesome, dude. Thanks again so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone that's listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave ratings, reviews, all the things, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you. Shout out to Tactical Baby Gear, and you guys keep doing your thing.